So I was in Bodh Gaya, which is a very powerful place where Emperor Ashoka, one of the most well-known, renowned Indian kings, he was a Buddhist king, built a shrine, what we call in Buddhism a stupa. A stupa is a reliquary where you house the important items of a very holy personage, in this case the Buddha. It could be one of the Buddha's main disciples, it could be one of the Buddha's attained associates, an arhat or something like that, and it contains a reliquary. It could be their hair, their nails, it could be ashes if they've been passed away, it could be bones, it could be their clothing, it could be the articles they use, because we believe in Buddhism that when you have achieved a very high level of realization, moksha, enlightenment, even the things that you use is energized. And so therefore those things can be used as a substitute for meeting this person even after they have passed away.
Because they retain the energy.
They retain the blessings.
Yeah.
You see, why do people go see those things? And this will help you. Why do people go and see those reliquaries or make flower offerings or to pay homage or fly there and make such an effort to go see it and make offerings? Because all of us have latent types of spiritual karma. The latent types of spiritual karma that's in us just needs a trigger point. Whatever you experience on a daily basis, you experience individually, environmentally, and as a group. So for those karma that you have latently implanted in your mind stream from this life, many lifetimes ago, it just needs a trigger. For example, if you were very young, when you were sad and you were down, you know, maybe you had a fight at the playground, and then your father gives you a lollipop. And that lollipop came along with a hug and support, wiped away your tears, and told you that it's okay. You will be a great person in school, you're going to make it, don't worry. And you had that kind of encouragement. And every time you were down, you fought with your friends, you got a lollipop, the same thing, etc., etc. When you grow older, let's say you're 40 or 50 and someone does that for you, it triggers a very good memory. It triggers endorphin glands to come, be released, and you go, God, I feel better. Because that's what you're used to, that's a trigger. But you see, that feeling in you has been subliminally implanted and consciously asleep. Right. It means it's there in your consciousness, just no one has done it for you. Right. And so therefore, karmic imprints are kind of like that. Whatever you say, think, do, have done is recorded. In New Age, it's kind of like a Akashic Records thingy. But in Buddhism, it's recorded within your mind stream. Because the mind has no limits. So therefore, you must have done something spiritual in your previous lives in order that in this life you come back seeking it. How much you seek for it in this life, how strong you seek for it in this life, and how persistent you are in this life is how strong your previous life imprints are. In Tibetan, you call that bakcha. So therefore, bakcha or imprints are there. It just needs to be triggered. For some people, because the imprints are so massive, you just need a tiny trigger. It opens up immediately. So meeting holy people, meeting the reliquaries, stupas, or objects of holy people, it is said it is a blessing. The blessing is actually opening up those seeds for you to do more. I think in layman's terms, you can say it's an inspiration. So when you meet these people, you read about their stories, you feel totally inspired, you feel totally moved, and for some people it's an inspiration and it moves them for a long, long, long time, and it sustains them. For some people it's a short while, and that is dependent on how much imprints you have in your previous life. Some people, when they're very young, they meet a lama, they go and become a monk, they become a nun, they go and practice, they go to the cave, they meditate, and they just take off from there. There are even Western people who do that, Western nuns, very famous ones, who just upon hearing about the lamas, they give up everything and they just go and become nuns and practice. Some people, they're very motivated. They're very motivated, very excited. And they just do it for a few months, a year or two, and then it fades off. And then they go back into their comfort zones. They go back into their laziness. They go back on their promises. They go back on their responsibilities as a spiritual person. And so what happens is that they're not bad people. They're not evil. It's just that the imprints are not strong. Then you can say, well, if the imprints are not strong, they're not strong. They just go back to doing what they're doing. But you see, going back to what they're doing isn't necessarily the right path either. So the dilemma is this. The imprints are not there to sustain us. Going back to doing what we were doing also will not assist us in the long term, in death. How? The solution is doing our practices now to create more imprints or to add to the imprints. You see, if you went to the gym 5 years ago, you basically know what to do. Maybe your body went kaput. It just went completely flat. It's out of shape already. But you see, if what you did in that gym, the training, how to do the positions, the exercise are still there. If you go back to the gym, you can pick up. You don't go home and say, okay, forget it, I don't care. You can continue. So imprints are like that. When you say, no, I can't, I go back to my comfort zone, I don't care anymore, I don't have to do it, no one's looking at me, no one's breathing down my back, that's wrong. We don't need people to breathe down our backs to do what we need to do spiritually. Because karma is always watching, karma is always there. So like that, that's why some people when they're very young, or they're older or mature, it's not the age, it's the duration of what they meet and what they encounter that inspire them for the rest of their life. There are people who meet Martin Luther King once, or even just hear him speak once, and for the rest of their life, they're activists. You see, because they have the imprint of doing good for society. They had, maybe in their previous life, they were already doing something similar in another society, another time. So to work for the benefit of others and sacrifice one's own comfort, that imprint and that character is already in that person.
So you're saying he awakens it?
He triggers it.
Yeah.
He triggers it. So when they go and meet someone as great as Martin Luther King, and someone as powerful as him, that is selfless, or Nelson Mandela, they just go, click. And then memories come flooding back, familiarity, say, that's what I'm comfortable with. So they don't go back to being a housewife, being a house husband, just working, just traveling, just doing little cheap sessions at home watching TV. They actually go and say, you know what? I'm going to go through any difficulties I can for society. So imprints doesn't apply to spiritual people. It doesn't apply to just me or this person or this monk or this. It applies to the whole of existence. So someone maybe in many lifetimes have been writing, have been good writers. And that's their thing. That's how they benefited or left their mark in the world. And then in this life, they meet a writer. They can meet a ballet dancer and they go, well, that's great. They work hard and move on. Then they meet a writer and go, hey, that feels familiar. That feels comfortable. I think that's something. And then writers go through hell. Rejection, hundreds of opinions, and downtimes, the items don't sell, negative publishers, bad interviewees, their own bad moods, their own dramas, family. They go through so much obstacles to get that one thing out. And there are many times writers want to quit, just like dancers and workers and monks. They want to quit. People are people. But because their imprint is so strong, they said, you know what, I'm just gonna be patient with these obstacles and I'm just gonna write. Because when I look inside, that's what I want to do. And so imprints doesn't apply to just spirituality, it applies to everything in our lives. Right? But whether the imprints that we are opening, and can simultaneous imprints open? Sure they can. If these imprints open, what we need to make sure is that these imprints will help us at the time of death. And that it is something worthwhile to pursue. Because another side of the coin is just because I did it in my previous life doesn't mean I need to do it now. For example, there are imprints of people in their previous life who are thieves. They're very good at stealing. They always steal. They always rob people. They're very good at getting things from people and tricking them. Well, in this life, you know, I'm not good with the 9 to 5. I'm very good at BSing and getting free things. It feels comfortable. I don't think we should pursue that imprint. I don't think we should go on with that because there are negative imprints. Why is imprints negative and positive? Because imprints themselves have no judgment, have no morals or ethics. It is just action being recorded.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Action being recorded. Okay?
And creating karma.
And very good. And simultaneously, you're still creating karma. You see, the creation of karma doesn't stop. It does not stop.
Right.
So what happens is, if our previous lives we had died perhaps in a situation where we were poverty-stricken, or things were taken away, or even in this life, when we grew up, it was very difficult. We could have lived in a very wealthy family, but our parents were stingy, and it was just so hard to get anything. Or we could have lived during Depression era, or we could have lived during a war or famine. This life, previous life. So in this life, we're very stingy. We're stingy not because we're bad people. We're stingy because we have fear. We're stingy and we're greedy because we have innate, deep fear, and we haven't dealt with that. So when we deal with that, because stinginess is not a good quality, miserliness is not a good quality. Why? We think we're saving and we can get as much as we can for others, and they give to us for free. We didn't have to pay. We got an advantage. But you see, that attitude creates more stinginess. It creates that we will be poverty-stricken in the future. You say, but I know people who are stingy and they're frugal, and in the end they have a lot of money. They have a lot of money, but they can't spend it. And they're not able to spend it, and they're not able to enjoy it, because their 24-hour thinking is how to protect my money. So being stingy is immediately, seemingly advantageous. Ultimately, it destroys us. Because why? Miserliness arises from a negative state of emotions. Why is it negative? Because it doesn't make us feel good. It doesn't make people around us feel good. So when we are stingy, we are living the imprints we have been doing in previous times now, and simultaneously we're creating more stingy energy. What is the stingy energy? The stingy energy is whether we have money or we don't have money, we suffer having to not be able to give. And stinginess doesn't just apply to money, it also applies to emotions. To not let the other person win. To always have to be the right one. To always get in the last word. To always have to just bug everybody around us to be right at the cost of looking bad and being wrong.
It's interesting that being stingy and being greedy sort of manifest similarly.
Oh, yes.
You know?
Yes. Because they're different, but they're related.
Right.
Stinginess is something about being frugal. Frugal is not necessarily negative. It's a kind of a mode. Stingy is really just borderline with saving and not giving, hoping others will do it instead, and you don't have to.
Well,
Greedy, frugal is saving.
Frugal implies that you're being careful, mindful of what
Yes,
you have.
but you have to understand, it's related.
Right. No, I know.
And frugality can easily switch to stinginess,
Right.
and vice versa.
But it becomes stingy when you have more than enough and you're still frugal.
But you see,
That's when it gets stingy.
But you see, that's the point. That is subjective.
Right.
It's not how much you have and then you have enough and then you can be generous or not. It's a state of mind that you're always stingy. Because how much you have and how much is enough is really subjective.
Right.
So that is not a judgment on anyone.
Right.
What we're talking about is not how generous a person should or is not. It is a state of mind that arises from the emotion of fear of not having.
Right.
And that imprint has been very strong from previous lives.
But there's two kinds of fear. There's the fear of not having what you want, which is greed to me, and there's the fear of not having what you need, which is practicality. Having what you need and having what you want arises from the same imprints, same karmas. Mm-hmm. If you're stingy, you will end up not having what you need. There are so many homeless people who need a house and shelter and food and warmth, especially in the winter. Right. Those are basic things. They can't even have that. Then you say they can easily go back. Some of them can go back home. Some of them actually have a lot of money. They don't do it. Why? Because the energy of stinginess is opened. So some of the homeless people are not poor. They have options. They can get a job, but they can't because they choose to be in a suffering situation because that karma has opened up. What karma? The karma of being stingy to people around them in the past has opened up that even if they can, they don't see it. You see, so I'm talking about the result of stinginess, not so much why. And then being afraid of what you're not going to have, what you need, not what you want. Yeah. Being afraid of not having what you need, just a small warm room, some food, medication, right. You know, all that, especially when you're aging. Right. It's not wrong at all. What I'm saying is, but if we have been very stingy in the past, that might affect us to not get what we need, right. Not what we want. Because you see, karma has no distinction. Remember this, karma's job is to make you suffer. Karma's job is not to make you happy. Water's job is to make you wet, not dry. Fire's job is to make you burn, not stay, moist. Yeah. So each function or each element has a job, and it will do its job. So you can't say, well, I don't want that karma because it's not what I want, it's what I need. Of course, I agree. But karma doesn't look at it that way. So I'm not telling you my opinions. I'm telling you what Buddha has said. Right. So therefore, by being greedy, or using need or stinginess or frugality as any reason to express that kind of action or emotion emotionally, whether people know it or not, it doesn't matter because that karma is collected. And in the end, we might not have what we need. There are many people who work and work and work. In the end, things get taken away. Suddenly, they don't even understand why. How do I know that? Because I'm in a job of meeting thousands of people over the 10, 20 years. Thousands and thousands. And I have many cases of people who have savings, they have interest, they had a good job, they have a great car, they have a lot of investment. Overnight, nothing. They're literally sitting on the streets. So you see, karma is like that. How do we create that energy? By generating stingy energy every single day. How do we get violence? By generating violent energy. Karma comes back that way. And the horrible thing about karma is we don't have to act out the karma. If we think it opens that energy up.